Welcome to Have You Heard with Heather Darling. I'm Heather Darling, and today's guest is Pat Delle Cava. Pat's the business manager of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the IBEW 102, in Parsippany, New Jersey, which has served the electrical needs of New Jersey and Pennsylvania for over 120 years. Pat Delle Cava has held membership in Local 102 since 1980, and he's worked his way through many officer positions in Local 102. He's been part of the management team for 18 years, and for the past 4 years, he's served as manager following an 80-year family history in the trades. Is that accurate?
Yeah, roughly.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show, Pat.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me, Heather. My pleasure.
So I believe you guys have, what, 3,000 employees or more?
Yeah, I have 2,500 electricians that work for 250 different employers on a temporary employment basis. Many of them, however, end up staying with the same company for life. I then have little under 500 people in manufacturing and municipal positions throughout the state. And they work for about 20 different employers, and we make everything from electrical cable, to shrink wrap for buses, to notification systems for alarm systems like horns and strobes and things of that nature.
So what is it that you do? You're the business manager. What does that mean?
All right, so basically my business it's a temporary employment agency. So these 2,500 people, as they get laid off, they come and sign an out-of-work list, and then we refer them back out on an as-needed basis to the 250 different employers that pull men from our pool. Then we basically are like a human resources outsourcing company, so we manage a defined benefit plan, a defined contribution plan, and a self-insured health care plan. So basically, I'm collecting that money with a bunch of different professionals involved, and we have financial consultants that are allocating it, and we're basically overseeing these 3 different funds. And then we have a training center downstairs, which is where our apprentices get trained and our journeymen constantly get retrained.
And I'm going to ask you more about
all of those businesses are basically nonprofits. And then we own a 50,000 square foot office building with tenants in it as well, and so we're a bit on the landlord side as well.
That's in Parsippany?
Correct.
Facility?
Yeah.
Okay.
We also have an office in Eastern Pennsylvania as well.
Okay. And during COVID, what kind of impact did you have? You're of a size where you were impacted by government mandates for vaccines. Did you lose people?
I mean, in the beginning of COVID, fortunately, the governor deemed us essential and didn't really shut down a lot of our projects. The state definitely needed income because they were paying a lot of people who weren't working. So our men, through payroll taxes, were providing some of the fuel to keep the government going. It's been a real challenge adapting to different laws to do with our health care, to do with everything else. Certainly the mandates have been problematic. The testing has been expensive. Healthcare, because we're self-insured on healthcare and those costs are continually going up, we didn't really need the added burden of a lot of testing to do with COVID. And we've been fortunately lucky with hospitalizations and minimal deaths. In the beginning, it was actually amazing how few of our people caught COVID, how few projects got shut down because of outbreaks on it. But our men, and women, they work outdoors a lot. They are sort of distanced from each other than gathering for coffee break and lunch. They're really not in close proximity to each other, and in many cases they are, wearing protective gear and in different environments where they're really not going to infect each other. But yeah, it's been tough on us. I mean, and we probably had our work a little bit off because of it. It did seem like a lot more was getting ready to pop with the economy, and in Jersey, it's been 9/11 hurt us, and the '08 crash hurt us, and Hurricane Sandy hurt us, and this is our fourth disaster in basically 20 years. So, we call New Jersey the land of the false starts, right? We always think we're going to have all these projects, and then something gets in the way and sets us back. But somehow in the middle of it all, we managed to feed these 2,500 families that we work so hard to keep enough runway in front of, that all this part-time work adds up to a lifetime career for them.
It's an interesting way of saying it,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people outside the union don't necessarily understand how the union works, and how a shop like yours, you don't simply employ these people, you're an agency that brings in jobs and then unites them with the jobs, just like any other employment agency. And that's a way that I've never heard it described before, so I appreciate that, especially for our viewers too.
Yeah, thanks. And it's interesting in the sense that most people will get a job, like they'll go work for a utility or become a teacher, and then they join the union. It's mandatory for them to join it. In our world, people try and join the union first by taking an aptitude test, going through an interview process, and they join the union and they have no job. And then we find them employment, and we train them, and we constantly retrain them. And, all of those 2,500 people give 1.5% of their base salary for training. So, you have people that are in this their whole lives that, if they're making $100,000 a year, they're donating $1,500 a year to train those who are coming behind them and constantly retrain themselves. So it's very interesting dynamic. It's something, like you mentioned, it's just about 90 years my family's been involved with 3 different labor unions, the laborers, the steam fitters, and the electricians. And like for me personally, the health care plan in my local will take care of me from cradle to the grave. I was born into it, and we offer free health care for life for our people who put 20 years in or more, and it'll take care of me for the rest of my life, and my wife as well. So it really is, it's a great system. It takes a lot of money to maintain all the benefits, though. It's quite challenging at times, depending on what the markets are doing, and healthcare costs certainly have not been stable or have gone down ever that I know of. So
Of course.
it's a challenge,
So let me ask you this. People think of electricity and they think solar, they think wind, all these different things as generating power. But in reality, that is a way to generate electricity. So you're involved in solar projects, you're involved in wind projects, all these different things. So this training must be quite substantive that your people go through. Are they in-house, or now you've got these facilities jumping up around the state at county colleges and things like that? There's one in Morris now. Steve Sweeney was in the studio earlier. We were talking about Rowan and their programs. Where do you guys train at this point?
So we do most of the training in our facility in Parsippany. Our local's unique in the sense that we have articulation agreements with different colleges. So when our apprentices go through a 5-year apprenticeship, if they choose to take on a little extra classes, they'll end up with an associate's degree. We also do 75% of tuition reimbursement for continuing ed. So we'll happily pay for people to go learn English as their second language. People will go take project management courses. We also bring in like professors from NJIT to teach like computer-aided design and like building image modeling, things that are above the scope of what electricians would teach. Our instructors, by and large, come from our field. So these are guys that are electricians, they're usually foremen, project managers, and then they segue into teaching. But we also do get into the different college campuses and try and expand. We're constantly trying to create upward mobility for our members. Even if they end up in a job where they leave our union, Not that they have to, it's voluntary. They could still stay a member even if they're not working through the system, if they want to continue to pay dues and be part of what we do. But yeah, we're very big believers or strong advocates in training, retraining. We were training in solar probably 15 years before it hit. Same thing with fiber optics. I was personally doing training in fiber optics when I was an electrician in the 80s before it really hit. Now we do all these big data centers, and now we kind of implement what we saw coming, and we started the training, and then it gets obviously more technical as time goes on. But you know, as far as generation, yeah, we do the fossil generation, all your natural gas. We do cogeneration. We do combined heat and power. We do a lot of solar. The offshore wind is out of my geographical jurisdiction where I do the electrical work at this moment. But there'll probably be parts of my Pennsylvania jurisdiction where they'll end up with a little wind in the mountains and stuff up there that we'll end up doing. But
I know on my way to Reading, somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere, there are a couple of windmills sitting on top of a hill in the middle of some pastures with cows in them.
Yeah.
And it looks so odd
Yeah.
to have those two things. One is very modern, and one reminds me of Amish Pennsylvania, or Amish country in Pennsylvania. So.
Yeah, like I actually, near my one home in Brick, there's one just sitting on the side of Manilokin Road, but you know, there's always a good breeze there, and they do generate a bit of power. I mean, the thing with wind is it's windier at night, and you were never able to really sell power at night. Now with the electric vehicles coming, a lot of people and a lot of truck depots and bus depots, they'll be charging vehicles at night. So now there'll be more of a demand for power at night, and I think now a lot of the wind will make more sense. I mean, at the end of the day, the safest, the most environmental friendly, and the cheapest form of power and the most reliable is actually nuclear. That's why I know you had Steve Sweeney on earlier, and you know, keeping the nuclear power plant open in New Jersey is paramount, because you know, natural gas prices can really soar, and you need a hedge for that. And when it comes to, you know, solar, the problem with solar is if all of a sudden you get 2-3 cloudy days in a row, or you have bright sun and now it goes dark and you have a very large amount of generation just
call that
disappear.
December, right?
Yeah,
Here in New
it
Jersey.
just disappears. So now it'll be a game of putting in battery banks and capacitance banks, and that's why you have the PJM, which is basically like the air traffic control of how all the power gets in from the different states, from the different places. Like the offshore wind in Atlantic City, that power really needs to make it up into the Northeast near Manhattan and up where there's a big demand. There's not much of a demand in Atlantic City area right now, but you know, it is very windy down there, so I guess it makes, and they're able to lease that parcel of underwater land from the federal government, so that's why that'll end up going there.
But now.
Yeah, so we'll be very diverse in New Jersey as far as generation, and you know, and down the line, you can use windmills to generate hydrogen and tie right into the existing natural gas infrastructure, and it may end up being a better way to go down the line and just running like nat gas style turbines down there, and then using that to keep the power headed up north. But it's interesting, you know, we're in a good place as electrical workers, because all the new technologies, whether it's 5G, electric vehicles, offshore wind, solar, it all touches our craft, you know, so we're very fortunate to be looking at the new technologies feeding our way of life.
We have to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to learn more about what Pat does, what the IBEW does, and for those of you that are interested in what you're hearing, maybe how you can get involved with the local 102 IBEW and have a great career. Welcome back to Have You Heard with Heather Darling and our guest today, Pat Delle Cava. When we went to break, Pat was telling us about how energy sources work together, and it's quite amazing for somebody like myself who thinks that the electrician is a guy who comes over when I'm having some work done, a renovation done in my house, and does some small things, or goes and sets up the lighting at Giants Stadium, but I don't think about the technical ideas that are behind this of bringing wind and gas and these new battery-powered vehicles and everything together the way that you guys do. So one thing that I hear about unions versus non-unions, and you keep talking about training, is safety.
Right.
And these guys and women are working with high power sources, conversion of energy from one thing to another. How important is safety on these jobs?
Oh, it's paramount, and like we were one of the first locals in the state to have mandatory OSHA 30 training for before we even send someone out into the field. But safety is a big part of our 5-year apprenticeship program. There's also something called NFPA 70, which teaches people how to not get burned from flashes, from arcs and things of that nature. And depending on what we're doing, like people who end up working in substations, doing high voltage work, the employers themselves will even take training to a different level. We also do a lot of safety training to do with manned aerial lifts, because we have people on lifts that can go 110 feet in the air. We have scissor lifts we're using on jobs. We're up on scaffolding. And our people tend to wear reflective vests, hard hats, goggles, cut-proof gloves. A lot of this ends up being insurance-driven with our employers as well. And I will say this, our 250 employers that we deal with are excellent partners in that respect, and in all respects. It really is a true partnership. They finance the risk. They go out there and competitively bid these jobs, and then they have to figure out how to build them and get them in under budget and on time, and they really do put a lot of effort forth. But yeah, when it comes to safety, we want to know that our people are going home safe every night, and that really is priority one. When the IBEW started, it was like 1 in 3 people who did electrical work died on the job. Wow. And we couldn't get life insurance. And part of the reason we started our own union was to kind of self-insure that if someone got killed at work, everyone would donate a little money to the wife. And it just kind of grew from that over the past 120 years. But yeah, safety is definitely priority one for us. Yeah.
So I want to shift gears because, like I said, you started talking about gas and solar and wind and how these things fit together, and it's a much more intellectual level than most people think of when they think of the electrician that's coming out to do an electrical job. So you were appointed a few years back to the State Economic Development Authority.
Yeah.
And after hearing what you just said, I understand why, because you're involved in some seriously large projects in the state of New Jersey. You're also involved with the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce. And they come to you, I guess, because of the amount of work that you're involved in and also the knowledge that you have from this mixture of things that you do. So what is your role on the New Jersey EDA?
Well, I was there. I was a board member for 3 years, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a firm believer in economic development and regional competitiveness, and if we don't offer incentives to businesses to come to New Jersey, they're not going to come. Even though we have this highly trained workforce, we have a massive amount of disposable income here. It's just the regulations, the taxes, the energy costs, they can get a much better deal somewhere else, and they were all leaving. And when, I guess it was like 12 years ago when we started Choose New Jersey, we joined that, and that worked in concert with the EDA. And basically that was a nonprofit where they would go out and sell New Jersey and lure businesses here from all over the world. And competitively, I mean, we were actually losing businesses to Philly, so something needed to be done. I was a firm believer in that. NJBIA originally did not want any unions to join, and when Michelle Sekerka took over, she went on a listening tour, and we were advertising with them, but they weren't letting us become part of the organization yet. And she took a chance on us, and it worked out, and many other building trades unions like the operating engineers and the heavy highway laborers and all started joining advertising and getting a seat at the table. And part of it was my personal goal was to penetrate the business world and just let them know what it is we do, right? Because between us and the end user, we have our employer, construction manager, you have engineering firms, and we really just wanted to get to know the people that were using our product, thank them for using it, and offer our assistance if there was any way we could help them smooth the road out to what they were trying to do, right? So it's not easy to build a project in New Jersey. Politically, there can be a lot of impedance, and we try and insert ourselves into the process and build long-term relationships with these end users, developers, site owners, and we end up doing much more market share than we used to simply by, and a lot of branding too. We've done a lot of advertising and marketing.
I can't go to any big event with the chamber or anywhere statewide without seeing IBEW Local 102 as a sponsor.
Yeah,
everywhere.
We're big believers in that, and we just wanted, we wanted the community to know. And we try and be really good community neighbors to everyone, to all the businesses.
Speaking of that, I know you guys give back, and I know you do your annual motorcycle run, which I personally love to participate as often as I can.
Yep.
But you also give back to, what I believe, Boy Scouts and other groups. Who
like this year's motorcycle run we did for Eva's Village, a nonprofit in Patterson that really needs a ton of money, and COVID hit them hard as far as feeding and housing a lot of homeless. We've done Goyab's Children's Hospital, Chilton Hospital. We've done the School for the Blind.
Veterans last year, I think.
Yeah, every year we did Veterans last year. So we pick a charity. We also do a lot of volunteer work. We do a lot of Habitat for Humanity and and all the local charities that we can give to, PAL, Boys Club, Boy Scouts, really anybody that comes our way that we can try and help out. It's, it's the right thing to do. Our members believe in it. We're all community people. Our members are all coaches and scoutmasters. And
I show up for the run, and I know a lot of your people.
Yeah.
Even though your people come from far and wide, the people that come from local are people that I know from shopping, from the gym, from this, from that. So you do have a very broad cross-section of individuals. So
and all the trades in New Jersey, it's a very unique place that we are so politically engaged and community engaged. So everyone, it's not just my local, all the other IBWs, all the other building trades, we all give back a really lot. And, and we all try and support local chamber and whatever local business groups. And I think we've really made a splash over the past 10 years where now, at one time, there were some negative connotations towards unions to do with, the Teamsters back in the day. And, we even have our own gripes with public sector unions at times, and because we're not the same, we're a private sector union, and we always feel like our role is to enhance the profitability of the people that use our product, where sometimes certain unions might get caught up in, I just want more for my people, I want more for my people. We're like, what can we do to help you become more profitable? What can I do? Once I make my employer more profitable, he'll finance more risk, he'll take on more projects, and he'll put more of my people to work. And that's kind of the philosophy behind what we all do.
So we have about 4 minutes left, Pat.
Yeah.
I want to know, if somebody's watching right now and says, wow, this is way more high level than I thought going in, and I'm listening to this, and you mentioned somebody's making $100,000 a year, and they don't have this big college debt that they have to pay.
Right.
if I'm watching this and I'm interested, what is the path that I take, right? I'm a junior, eighth grader in school, and I'm listening to you, and I don't think I want to go to college. I think I want
Right.
to go into the trades. What is the path that I would take?
So really, to qualify to come into our particular union, you basically need a high school diploma or a GED with a passing grade in Algebra 1. So that's the key. So to take our entrance exam, which is given once a year, most of the locals in the state of New Jersey, there's 6 IBEW construction locals that do this. We give an annual test, and it's basically math and reading comprehension, because it's definitely, there's a high level of math involved in what we do. Now, a lot of it's become easier due to computers and due to computers controlling different mechanisms, where we used to have to hardwire different relays and completely understand how an integrated system out in the field was going to operate. Now that has been dumbed down a little. The pipe bending part of it has been dumbed down a little, but basically you'd apply, you'd have to go on the website of whatever local you live near. You'd apply, find out how to apply, fill out your application, then you get your high school transcripts in and whatever other information they ask you for. Then you take an aptitude test. And then, for instance, I'll have 500 applicants for 50 positions. And then we have a joint board of our employers and our JATC members, our Joint Apprenticeship and Training Committee members, that'll interview these people. And then they'll try and pick out the best ones, and then those people will start their career with us. And then if you don't get in, you can re-interview a year later, you can test out again. And if you're an employer that's a non-union electrical contractor and you wanted to do business with us and say, you know what, I want to hire these high quality guys, and I want to take my company to the next level, and then that's as simple as calling our office or one of the other local unions' offices and expressing interest. We meet with you, we show you what the contract looks like, we explain to you how to do business within our world, and all are welcome. We like the more employers we have with us, the more opportunity for work for our members. We don't try and keep anybody out. They're welcome to come and try and do business with us if they would like, and that's basically it. I mean, we also do have a teledata program, which isn't electrical work, which is more fiber optic and communication type work, which doesn't really require an aptitude test. You would basically just come and take an interview. But if you're somebody that formerly worked for the phone company, or you think you like, and we have people that have started in that part and then segued into the electrical part later. So there's always opportunities with us, and we try and help as many people come into our world as possible. It's just finding enough consistent employment for them to keep it all going, is our challenge.
Well, Pat, we're out of time. I want to thank you for coming in. I want to thank you for educating our viewers and educating me in the process. I've known you for quite a few years now, and this is not something that we've ever discussed, and it's not something that somebody like me who's not involved in your trade actually breaks it down and thinks about the way that you did. So again, I thank you. I thank you for the time, and I'm sure our viewers, as did I, learned a lot, and hopefully you'll come back and join us at some point in the future and maybe talk a little bit more about what you're doing with the chambers and with employment and some of the maybe more progressive things that you'll be doing in the future.
No, I really appreciate you having me, Heather. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Pat. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.